Michigan quarterback Bryce Underwood will be influenced to enter the portal. Here's why you should at least consider it, but not make it an automatic decision.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day, right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We're going to be discussing how teams are, quote unquote, inducing or persuading young quarterbacks to enter the portal and why. There's one transfer portal window from January 2nd through January 16th. Yes, that makes an impact. We'll discuss that later on in the show. We're also going to talk about a couple of the key guys that have already got in the portal. Kenny Minchey from Notre Dame, Colton Joseph from Old Dominion. How a guy that's from a lower level like Old Dominion is kind of risen up, but now he's got opportunities to go a lot of places after playing quite a bit, while Minchey, a guy that was an Elite 11 quarterback out of high school in Tennessee, signed with Notre Dame but didn't beat C.J. Carr out, hasn't played much. How they're different, but not really, because teams need talent, and that's the first thing they look at. We'll talk about that. And speaking of talent, this is my take and the #1 theme of the show, why Bryce Underwood, Michigan's young quarterback, is so coveted, and many are hoping he gets in the portal. Here is my take. Yes, there will be numerous schools contacting people around Underwood to get him to enter the portal. Not debating that. I understand why he would take that under consideration. If Michigan does not find a head coach any later than January 31st, perhaps even sooner, maybe those around Bryce and just himself, maybe he decides to get in the portal. It again opens on January 2nd, but he can make his decision before then. But here's the other side. Why should he at least consider staying with the Wolverines? He could be a hero. He's from the state of Michigan. He's from the greater Detroit area, roughly an hour away. He's a guy that could lead the Wolverines out of the wandering wilderness with all that's going on off the field with Sherrone Moore, and he would be helping his teammates out. Not everybody has even remotely the talent that Bryce Underwood does. Many of his teammates, as well as just his classmates at the University of Michigan, would remember him forever if he stayed and helped fix the mess that is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Not saying it's the only route. I'm just saying it's something he should consider. With that being the case, I also understand the other side. Money will be thrown around, quite a bit of it, actually. And to that end, I've read where his contract, and I'm not saying this is factual, but I have read that in his contract, if he leaves, there is no penalty. That gets very, very dicey because there are going to be a lot of schools that say, you know what, let's take a look. Let's take a look. Maybe we should go this route and just have some fun with it. Here are the stats this past year. And he was a true freshman, for those who don't remember. 179 to 294, 61.1%, 7.6 yards per attempt. That's pretty modest. 2,229 yards, 9 TDs, 6 interceptions. So they didn't have the weapons at wide receiver they needed. The Marsh kid was a young guy that came in, another freshman out of the greater Houston area. He did very well. I think that's a good starting point, but they need 2 or 3 more guys. I get it. But with Moore not there, maybe they'll hire a coach that is more susceptible to throw the football, make it a little easier. As a runner, they didn't use him a ton, but 74 carries, 323 yards, 4.4 yards per attempt, 6 TDs. And keep in mind, sacks count against your rushing total. He averaged over 5 yards a tote. Very, very gifted athlete at 6'4" and well over 220 pounds. What's interesting is that he's just scratching the surface. As it shows down there below for those of you watching on YouTube, PFF has him with 20-plus yard passing throws, meaning it doesn't make contact with anyone, offense or defense, till it leaves the line of scrimmage. It goes at least 20 yards. He was only 18 of 46, 39.1%. That's 12.2 yards per attempt in those scenarios, 3 TDs, 2 interceptions. That's low. And it's also a low number of attempts. It's low in everything there, except for maybe the yards per attempt. He did hit a few big ones. That's great. But overall, Michigan's got to take that step forward. All these things make it interesting for a quarterback coach in any other school, not named Michigan, to want him in the portal because his ceiling is so high. I've seen Bryce play live multiple times. Good guy, very intelligent, but his ceiling is so high compared to where he's at right now. In 2 years, I expect those PFF 20-plus yard throws to be more like 50% or close to it, 45%, and the yards per attempt to be 14 or 15, and the TDs 3-1, if not 4-1. It's just experience. If he spends 2 years in a system that fits him better than what the Michigan offense was from last year, he could be a Heisman candidate. He could win it. He could be a first-team All-American. He could help Michigan reach the NCAA's grandest stage, the college football playoff, and do some damage. Maybe even make it to the title game. Who knows? Again, we all know football is a team sport. He needs more help if he stays at Michigan. But again, I digress on that whole point of they need to find out who the next head coach is, or at least wait a little bit. Maybe that's the kind of guy that can attract some talent. But as for him leaving, these are modest stats. But remember, he's 18 years old, throwing up these numbers. What's he going to be like in a year or so with his arm strength, with his speed, with his intelligence, all of those things together? I get it. It's not that difficult to see why somebody would, quite frankly, want to go out and make it happen, because he's a great athlete and he's somebody that has the ability to get it done from one year to the next with a major jump. Like freshman to sophomore year at any position, there's usually a big jump. But with Underwood, it could be even more, because that offense wasn't a great fit last year. Just being honest. So to that end, here are a few thoughts and questions that I have about the whole Underwood situation. Take it for what it's worth, but this is what I'm curious about. Will he be persuaded into the portal? Absolutely. I don't know if he'll actually do it, but people are going to try. The money's going to be crazy. And again, if it's a situation where I'm right in what I've read, that he doesn't get a penalty if he leaves, that makes this wide open. Why would Underwood not consider leaving Michigan? I mean, he's going to at least think about it, right? For those of you that are Michigan fans, I'm sure you don't want to hear that, but you have to look at it from a equal opportunity standpoint. He doesn't know who his head coach is. They don't have a ton of weapons, and it's not a guarantee they're going to be great next year with all the upheaval that's likely with the coaching staff. That's rough. So we'll see. What about Underwood's physical talent? It's as good as any in the country, and I don't care what position you talk about. I've seen a lot of kids play live in the last 5 years. He's as gifted physically as anybody I've seen. Now, again, the NIL contract with Michigan, is that completely true what I read? Is there anything that would keep him there? And is Michigan willing to up the ante, et cetera, if he stays? There's a lot of different things that could go on with negotiations. So keep that under mind too. And finally, is he willing to be a true running quarterback? This is the one that's the toughest question for me. And what do I mean by a true running quarterback? He didn't even have 100 carries last year. And we're talking about a guy that could play receiver or free safety, linebacker, whatever, just from an athletic standpoint. But to make it to the NFL, the biggest thing that the NFL teams want are healthy quarterbacks. But he's a runner. Is he willing to, even if he stays at Michigan, run more? And if he went to another team that would allow him to be that guy that throws the football around, but still wanted to run a little more than Michigan did last year, is he willing? There are so many questions about this stuff that it's another reason I think he needs to at least consider finding out who the next head coach is going to be for the Michigan Wolverines, even if that means it's unofficially, they can't announce it yet for contracts with whoever it may be. Once he knows, if he gets on the phone with that coach, and that's how this stuff works, you need to have that conversation. How much am I going to run? What kind of offense are we going to operate? Will it be a fit for you and for me? If Underwood and those around him don't look at it from that perspective, I would be shocked, because that's just common sense. But sometimes people do get ahead of themselves and they worry about it from a financial standpoint, and they don't look at it from anything else. That's a problem. Underwood, from my little experience around him, is pretty astute. I'd be surprised if he didn't look at this from a long-term solution. Hey, the next coach coming in is going to throw it, or he's not, whatever it may be. I need to do something accordingly based on the next coach. That should be the first thing he looks at, because he's going to make a ton of money no matter where he goes. Base yourself in the situation of Underwood. It'd be easy to take the money, but somebody as smart as him, and I assume he's got really good people around him, They need to look at this from a first and foremost situation of long-term development, because the money's going to be there. If he gets the right coaching between now and the time he leaves the collegiate ranks, whether it's Michigan or otherwise, he could be the first pick in the draft. The money will take care of itself from there, and he's already made some pretty good coin at the University of Michigan. So with that in mind, just keep a broad perspective on this, whether you're a Michigan fan, whether you're hoping he gets in the portal because your school needs it. I have no idea where he would go. There's a lot of speculation. LSU, because he was committed there, and Kiffin's. It's not a lock that he would go to any school. The quarterback coach, relationships, all that stuff, it matters. And like the coaching staff's changed at LSU. And I get Kiffin, but he doesn't have a relationship with him like he did that last staff. So I have no idea where Bryce would go. So we'll see what happens. When we come back, Kenny Minchey, Colton Joseph, quarterbacks that have taken different paths to reach the portal. What does that mean for them? And what does that mean for teams trying to look for a quarterback? That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories, because Aura is not your average picture frame. You can actually preload the frame with photos before you even get it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out. There's no confusion. There's no difficulty with the setup. Just instant smiles right away. So if it's your grandparents you're trying to find a gift for, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's somebody that it's just a friend of yours. You can do anything from dog photos to kids to memories from a family vacation, whatever it may be. Load the photos, give the gift to somebody, or maybe you just do it for yourself. Either way, it works out great. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting rframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com, promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in. And with that, I also have something else to mention to you, the Everydayer Club. If you want to get these shows without paying any extra time with the ads, that's the first thing that I would bring up. $5 a month or $50 a year. All you got to do is check out the link in the description. Simple as that. It will also give the opportunity to discuss stuff on the Discord with me and other people all around the Locked On Network, the football page, whatever it may be, recruiting. It's a lot of fun. But look, nobody likes ads. That's the first thing. For $5 a month, you can get rid of them. Just check it out in the description down below. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about, the other quarterbacks that are in the portal. Just started. But there are several more, I can assure you, that are going to be in. But the first two that I want to talk about today, it's so ironic, and I wanted to bring this up, and it's what makes the portal interesting. Quarterback from a major school, Kenny Minchey. He has never been the starter at Notre Dame, was there 3 years. He was an Elite 11 quarterback out of the greater Nashville, Tennessee area, committed to Pittsburgh, ended up signing with Notre Dame. Played a little bit, but just in mop-up duty. Super talented. He's athletic as all get out. He can do a backflip. He's the guy that can make guys miss in space. He can be an RPO quarterback. He's got the arm to throw deep. When he was at the Elite 11 finals in 2022 in LA, I was told that Minchey was the guy that was the best of anybody there on the chalkboard. All of those things stated, he still didn't beat out CJ Carson. There isn't much film. So how do you grade him? Well, let's talk about the other side of that. Speaking of the greater LA area, Colton Joseph, quarterback that comes into this situation a little bit differently. He's from the greater Los Angeles area, but went all the way across the country, played at Old Dominion. Now, this is a young man that has a few years of eligibility left, but he put up big numbers. But he played at Old Dominion. How do you grade it? Well, there's a couple ways you can look at it. Just how did he do against better teams last year? Well, this past season, first game of the year, they played in Bloomington against now the #1 team in the country, the Indiana Hoosiers. 179 yards rushing on 10 carries. He had a couple of touchdowns. Pretty good day. The question is, Could he do that week in and week out at a major P4 school, whether it's a Tennessee, a UCLA, or whatever it is? What's going to happen with him? Athletic, got some big numbers passing the football, but again, he didn't take the week in, week out pounding that somebody would, like Bryce did at Michigan, because he played at Old Dominion. Played a few of those games, but Virginia Tech, Indiana, there's a couple, but that's not like the 9-10 games that you would play P4 level. How do you grade that? So let me compare Kenny and Colton. Number one, I had the chance to see Kenny Minchey in high school because of the Elite 11 finals in LA. Great feel for him. He's a great kid, really accurate, smart. He's been coached well at Notre Dame. He's just at the same school CJ Carr is at. That being the case, I will be very, very surprised if he's not very successful at a major P4 school. SEC, Big Ten, whatever. Wisconsin's one of the schools that I know has at least entertained trying to bring him into the fold, and there will be several others. When a kid is at a program like Notre Dame, they're probably going to get a little more leeway because that's a different kind of school academically. Like, you're put through a lot. That's good as it relates to the quarterback position. And secondarily, it's the personality off the field just as much as on. So I think Minchey will have numerous opportunities. As for Joseph, it's very, very simple. This is a young man that has already put up stats. And if you think that's not important, let me give you an example. Ironically, again, he played against Indiana this year. You know what the Hoosiers did over the last 2 years? They took a bunch of guys for 2 straight years that were either FCS or lower level of the top division, FBS, and found guys that were successful no matter how they were recruited. Recruiting ranking went out the window after they had stats, and Indiana's winning with them. They took 13 players last year from James Madison, and I believe 8 of them are still in Bloomington. Some of them are All-American. Surratt, Fisher, some of those guys are going to be NFL players. This is a guy that was immediately successful at Old Dominion. He could move. He could throw it. He's got the stats to back it up, and he did well against the top-end teams that he did go against. Somebody's going to make Colton Joseph an offer that he's probably going to like, and there might even be several. It'll be interesting to see where he goes, as well as Minchey. They're different players, but for different reasons, they can still both end up being big time. And I do mean big time quarterbacks at the FBS level. They're going to be fun to follow, and there's going to be several more to discuss as well. When we come back, I want to talk about persuading quarterbacks into the portal. What is that? Why does it happen? And why do college coaches almost have to do it? There's a lot to discuss here in this next part of the show. Let's check it out next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting fun with FanDuel, and it's always going to be exciting because you're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, a quarterback catches fire, whatever it may happen in that game. There's going to be that moment where you know everything's shifting, and here's your chance to make a live bet with FanDuel. And they also shift with you. They have live spreads and money lines that are going to adjust with the score of the game, with the player or players that are doing well or not. So the player props are going to change. If you think somebody's really falling off as a quarterback, maybe you bet against them. Whatever it may be, that's up to you. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate it. If you have not already, please hit that like and subscribe. Truly appreciate it. Now, what is it that makes all these teams try to persuade quarterbacks to get in? Let's just start with the basics here. You don't have a quarterback, you're not winning. Do you think college football fans and the ADs that have to listen to the boosters and all that, you think they're patient people? If you think it's bad on social media, you ought to see what some of the private conversations are like. I've stood next to boosters as they were on the phone with people at major universities. These are the kinds of people that can write 7-figure checks. If you think it's bad online, you have no idea. It is win now or go home. That's why they cheat. Because these jobs, how many people are going to make 7 figures or even 6 figures in their life in a year if they're not coaching? That's another reason they cheat. And then finally, nobody likes to lose. It sucks. So yes, many schools cheat openly, do not care. And the final point to this, the one that I constantly mention, the NCAA is toothless until they absolutely, unequivocally drop the hammer on somebody for cheating, and they're not going to do it. Everybody's going to cheat. It is a free-for-all. There is no loyalty, and it starts with coaches. Not the players, not the agents, coaches. They are inducing people by contacting agents, trainers, 7-on-7 coaches, people all around a player. They don't even have to contact them directly. And then they get it started, the process. That's how it works. You may not like it. I know I don't, but I also understand. And again, you're not going anywhere without a quarterback. It's just the way it is. Baseball, basketball, football, there are always going to be specific positions in any sport that change things. A great shortstop, a great relief pitcher, having a home run hitter, whatever it may be, you need something for your team that is going to change the outcome. That has nothing to do with coaching. It is talent. And in football, the quarterback, he has to deliver that football on time and all that stuff, but he's also got to be the coach on the field. He's got to get everybody lined up. He's got to do things in a timely fashion. There is no position in sport where there's more on an individual player than quarterback. It is hard. So the cheating has many different reasons for it, and it is not going anywhere. And as one final reminder, as I've mentioned earlier in the show, one portal window, January 2nd through January 16th. So if you don't get it right, there is no, well, we screwed up. We got to get another quarterback now that spring practice. No. By that point, there'll still be guys available, but nobody you want. They just have to enter between January 2nd and 16th. They do not have to sign until whenever. But by the time we get to spring ball, everybody's enrolled. It's over. So with that in mind, you're going to see a lot of big names, a lot of rumors, and they're probably going to be true in some capacity about entertaining the option to transfer. Don't be mad. Just realize that that's the nature of the sport now. I've kind of got past being angry about it myself because I like the traditional kind of knowing the roster. Those days are over. You might as well get over it. It's just the way it is. And I'm sure like Colton Joseph at Old Dominion is a great example. They're not going to get a kid like that. He was kind of a wild card they took from California. Obviously, they did their homework right. He's really good. Those kind of kids aren't going to stick around. They're going to go to P4 schools after being induced to enter the transfer portal. That's the nature of the beast. With that in mind, just understand that college football is going to be at its wildest point between right now, when you're watching or listening to this podcast, and the end of January. Once the college football playoffs are over and those teams get to have a few extra days for guys to get in the portal and whatnot, it is going to be very, very wild. One portal window just adds to the pressure and teams trying to figure it out. So with that, I truly appreciate you stopping in to check out the Portal Podcast. Again, if you have not, please become an everydayer. Really appreciate it. And again, if you want to check out the Everydayer Club, just check out the link down below. Truly appreciate you coming in. Everybody have a good one. This has been the Portal Podcast.